This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. We are glad to have you with us. The legislative session is mercifully over, or well, it's close to over. And so we are here to talk about some of the session's accomplishments and maybe some shortcomings. I'm joined by David Reyes with Americans for Prosperity, the Arkansas chapter, Tamika Edwards with Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. Welcome to you both.
Thanks,
Roby. Thanks for being here. You guys don't look too tattered or worn down for a long legislative session there. Did you hold up okay?
Just glad that it's over.
Yes, yeah.
Taxpayers can let go of their wallets.
Neither one of y'all have much gray hair from this session. I'm going to have to talk to leadership about that. They needed to make it a little rougher on y'all. All right, Tamika, I'm going to come to you first. Yes. I want to hear some of the highlights of the session for Arkansas Advocates. What were some of the things that you felt were good that got done?
So while we were concerned about a constant push for anti-poor legislation, there were several highlights. And so we had paid maternity leave for state employees. Well, now mothers don't have to choose between their health and their finances. We also had a school discipline bill where now we are able to keep our youngest kids in school longer. The governor included an additional $3 million for pre-K. And so, you know, we've talked a lot about pre-K, right. So we were happy to see that. And while that's not what we asked for, we recognize that it is a step in the right direction. Life without parole for minors, and so we were able to see that pass. And we, of course, know that healthcare reform will be big during the upcoming special session. So we were happy to see that members pass the appropriation to fund it one more year.
There was a little bit of a tax break for low-income folks in this session, too. I know it wasn't the tax credit that you guys wanted, but it's better than nothing.
That's absolutely correct. And I included that in my neutral to say.
Okay.
But so we were happy to see that, and we applaud the governor for it. But of course, you know, we advocated for a state level earned income tax credit. And so hopefully when they get their blue ribbon tax committee together, that they consider that and have a good consideration.
We may talk about that a little bit. All right, David, let's hear some session accomplishments for Americans for Prosperity. What did you guys work on? What are you proud to have seen happen?
Well, a couple of big highlights from the session. Number one, after several sessions of talking and not a lot getting done, finally the legislature has taken the step to refer a constitutional amendment on tort reform to the voters. As other states that surround us have improved their business climate by reforming their civil justice system, it's important that we follow suit. Secondly, great piece of legislation from Senator Bart Hester and Representative Austin McCollum to repeal the state's costly and onerous prevailing wage mandate. That is a labor and regulatory reform that's going to save the state millions of dollars every single year going forward. And then really on taxes, you know, obviously there was the $50 million income tax cut, which was very modest in scope and size, but that we were supportive of. Probably the best tax bill throughout the legislative session, though, was from Representative Andy Davis and Senator Lance Eads that would phase out the InvestArt credit, which is our state's largest sort of corporate welfare credit, and replaced it with eliminating the sales tax on repair and replacement manufacturing parts, which is a business input and should be exempt.
You almost said repeal and replace there, didn't you? You got close. I know it was.
Got a lot of that on the mind these days.
Did you guys ever find yourselves in competing positions on some issues?
I'm sure we did. We were opposed to the earned income tax credit idea that they were in support of.
Even though it's cheaper.
I brought you here to do a little kumbaya with David. Yes. After we get off the set here, we're going to see what we can do in terms of bridging that gap. All right, David, I'll come to you first, and Tamika, back to you. Talk about maybe one or two things you wish the session had addressed a little bit more.
Yeah, there were some missed opportunities for sure. One area that comes to mind off the top of my head is school choice. Representative Jim Dotson did just a tremendous amount of hard work trying to advance education savings accounts, even amended the bill into a very limited pilot program that would only affect a handful of 100 kids out of 470,000 plus statewide. That bill passed the Senate, but fell about, I think, 7 or 8 votes short in the House. So that was disappointing. I think folks who sent a bunch of Republicans to Little Rock expected more in terms of advancing school choice. And then one other area that was just very, really heartbreaking, I think, was that the special election reform bill that we've advocated for many sessions came up one vote short this past week in the House.
That's job security for you, David. Job security is what it is. And
Tamika's over here. We would rather have taxpayer security.
Tamika's smiling in some of the things that you were saying there. Tell me about some of the shortcomings for you, and then I'll let you guys fight afterwards.
So one of the shortcomings, I think, was no funding for Positive Youth Development Grant Program Act, which was passed in 2011, and it would provide funding for high-quality after-school and summer programming. And so it passed in 2011. It has rules and regulations already in place. It only cost $5 million, but there was not any will from the General Assembly to fund it. And so we believe that as we continue to talk about making sure that kids have safe places, that families know where their children are from 3 to 6, which are critical times, that we need to have those kinds of investments, especially talking about workforce development. These are the types of programs that will that would actually help those families and those children. And we were disappointed not to see an EITC. And so, you know, we're hoping that again, as they talk with the blue ribbon tax reform, whatever it's called, and I know
it's a
that
blue ribbon panel is what it is.
Panel, yes. So I clean up my language. Blue ribbon panel, that they really consider an earned income tax credit. But if what's funny is that we were against the school voucher bill, so that was really actually a highlight for us.
All right. So the tax commission panel that we're talking about here, is that going to be one of the biggest things that you guys think you'll be dealing with in the interim? Is that going to be one of the biggest areas of focus for y'all?
It will be. You know, there were a lot of tax issues that came up during this legislative session. We helped defeat the gas tax bill and the internet sales tax bill, which frankly I think a lot of the conservative grassroots is frustrated that we're still having to battle against large tax increase type bills in this legislature. But this panel is going to be charged with looking at a lot of different areas, whether it's business taxes, personal income taxes, sales taxes. What we really think they need to do is focus on broadening the base with our sales tax, especially related to services, and use those rates to finally address our uncompetitive personal income tax rates, which are the highest in the Southeast.
All right, Tamika, and you guys will be up there with a big focus on that as well.
Absolutely, because I think we have to make sure that we pay attention to investing in our Kansans. And if we get so focused on cutting taxes, then we will cut programs that are most important to vulnerable families in this state. And so I think that we have to have a balanced tax approach where we're not consistently seeking tax cuts for higher earned or for wealthy individuals, and focus on low income individuals who pay a disproportionate amount of their income on taxes.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch because it's going to be 2018, it's going to be an election year, and all this stuff is going to be centering up on that, so we'll see where that goes. David Ray, Tamika Edwards, thank you both very much for being here. Enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And we will talk more off camera here shortly. We are back with more right after this word from our sponsors.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Late last week, I sat down with Johnny Allison, chairman of Conway-based Home Bank Shares. His bank enterprise just purchased Stonegate Bank of Florida for $778.4 million. Of interest, Stonegate is authorized to provide credit cards in Cuba, the only U.S. bank with such a presence. And Allison offered these thoughts.
You know, interesting, the governor was at the announcement in the Cuban connection with, he has the only credit card issued in Cuba. So we'll be going next week to Cuba and meeting the Minister of Finance and having a little rum and smoking some cigars and drinking some coffee.
I was going to bring that up a little bit later, but
Oh,
we'll
really?
segue into that
Yeah,
now.
okay.
So right now, Cuba, that's a profit center for you guys with the Stonegate acquisition. But so if it's just the status quo, if policy doesn't change, it's still a good place for you guys to be. But if the policy does change, how big do you think that could be? That would really be icing on the cake.
That could really be big. That could be very big. However, someone asked me, how much value did you assign to it? And I said nothing because I don't understand it yet, but maybe by the time I get back, I can give you a report on how Cuba was and what we think we can do with that.
That's Johnny Allison, chairman of Home Bank Shares. There's much more to this interview. Check it out at talkbusiness.net. That's all for today's show. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Roby Brock. Take care.